Excited to have my next guest back on the show. You know who it is. Skeletor Joe Giannetti will be defending his welterweight title at Cage Titan 63 on January the 27th when he faces Sean Lally. Joe, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Excited to have you back on. As I was saying before we started, man, been far too long since we've spoken last. So excited to speak to you again, man, as always. And what a great fight with Sean. You're defending the strap. It's a big fight, man. How excited are you for this one?
I'm super excited. It's one of those things where Lally, if you know the local scene, you know Lally's been around for a while. He's a contender series vet, and overall, he's just a big, violent guy. You know what I mean? So it's a dangerous fight. It's a big fight. But those are the type of fights that get me excited.
And he's super aggressive. He comes right after his opponents. Is that something that you feel like is going to benefit you and your style?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be, kind of similar to my last fight, kind of like Bull and Matador. You know what I mean? If you've seen my fights with Bone, like I'm down to sit in the middle and throw down, but it's also like if I can get in and out of there real quick, then I'm just gonna pick you apart.
Mhm. As you mentioned, you won the welterweight title in November, stopping Pat Casey, another big, strong, dangerous fighter. How nice was that, man, to stop him and then win this belt at 170?
It was great. Obviously it wasn't part of my original plan, but more and more I'm learning that plans change and you kind of got to roll with the punches. And obviously Pat's a super game competitor. He's down to fight anybody, and that's why I respect him so much. So getting a win over somebody like that was really cool.
And you've had a lot of success at lightweight. What's the plan moving forward? Are you going to be fighting more at 170, or do you feel like 155 still is where your future's at?
155 pounds is where my future lies. I made the decision after the last fight, which obviously didn't end up happening, or 2 fights ago, that I was going to stick to 55, which is why I vacated the 170 belt. And then, when everything fell through with the Pat Casey fight and Jack Congdon, I got asked to fill in, so I couldn't say no to the opportunity. But I do feel like not only is 155 my home, but I also feel like I need to hunker down and just focus on that. For the last few years, as much as people give me crap for like, oh, he struggles with 55 or he'll miss weight, yada yada yada. It's also one of those things where one, I've made weight way more times than I've ever missed weight, and two, I've bounced around from 70 to 55 to 65 because it's so hard to find fights at 55. And when I have an actual fight camp, when I have an actual, high level opponent that I know is going to make it, it's a lot easier to hunker down and fight at 55. But when you fight a guy that you think might pull out because he's pulled out against you before, or you don't know who you're going to fight next, so it's like, oh, you might fight this guy at 70 or you might fight this guy at 55. It sucks because you don't really know where to have your weight walking around, because just as much as you don't want to be too big for 55, I don't want to be too small for 170. I'll
Mm.
never take a fight at welterweight and be just a 55 or not cutting weight. That's just not a successful path. And I got word luckily very quickly after the Pat Casey fight about my options for January. I didn't like the options for 55. It was irrelevant fighters. So if they're not going to, make me go forward with a win, then there's no point of putting myself through cutting weight, especially through the holidays.
And you're still a very young guy. You're not even 30 yet. What do you walk around at nowadays?
So because this fight's at 70 right now, I'm walking around at 186. But before I took the Pat Casey fight, I got my weight down to 77. And I was trying to get down to like 70, 75-ish, bouncing around between those two. But like I said, if I'm fighting at 70, I don't want to be just a 55 or not going in the sauna.
Mhm.
I want to be an actual welterweight. So I've been bulking up a little bit. And then after this one, I'm done at 170. I'm committing to 55 until I get to the point in my life where 55 is impossible. It's gonna suck for me because I know that it's gonna be on everybody around me, whether it's my team or my fiance, to just, make me stick to my choice. Because if, I beat Lally and then March comes around and it's like, hey, nobody will fight you at 55, you can fight this guy at 70. The fighter in me is gonna go, I want to stay active, I want to go, let's do it. But I need to do what's best, and what's best is for me to fight at 55. So I need to just, even if it costs me missing a card or fighting later, I have to stick to 55 because that's where I think I'll make my world title run.
Makes sense. And it's got to be nice fighting at 170 around the holidays, right? Being able to eat kind of what you want.
It's been the first one in a long time. It's been very nice. Haven't gone too crazy, but I'm from an Italian family, so my dad's making cookies. I'll have one or two of those.
Yeah, one or two. Oh, and you like pizza, pasta, all that stuff, obviously, I have to
Oh
imagine.
my God, pasta, my dad's pasta, my fiance's pasta, like they cook so much, and I'm like, oh, I'll have another bowl.
Yeah. No, it's tough, man. Trust me, I'm a little older than you. Every year that passes, it's tough to keep the weight down. So enjoy it while you got it.
I tell people all the time, they're like, "Why do you train so much?" I'm like, "So I can eat so much."
Yeah, exactly, my man. Let's talk about the fight in September. Obviously, that's the one you lost. That was for the lightweight strap to Michael Dufour. What happened there? Is there something you can point towards as to a reason for that slip up there?
Um, I think the best way to put it without like making an excuse or taking it away from him is it just wasn't locked in, you know what I mean? I spent a majority of the day trying to like get in that zone, you know. I felt like I was kind of just there. I was like, all right. And not in a comfortable way of like, okay, another day in the office, but almost in just like a I tell people this all the time, and it sounds so corny. Like, there's Joe and there's Skeletor. And Skeletor's here for fight nights. Skeletor's not here to make friends. He's here to get his paycheck and beat people up. And there's Joe, who's like just a pure competitor, wants to win, but it's not life or death. It's like I want to win. And trying to hone into like that middle ground of like, a lot of people call it the flow state. And that's what ever since I took that year off of fighting and came back and had that comeback fight with Darius Estelle, I feel like I hit that flow state, and all my best performances since have been the same. So I'm always trying to lock into that, and I just wasn't locked in, and Dufour kind of steamrolled me. There was plenty of BS going on during camp, like fight camp stuff, but every fighter goes through it. So I'm not going to say that's why I lost, but I got caught lacking, and Dufour did his thing, and I knew if I lost that that's the way it would go down. Dufour's very dangerous if you let him fight his fight, and I did. I'm looking forward to running that one back if he doesn't get signed to UFC Canada or a bigger promotion.
I was just going to ask. I mean, I have to imagine that's a fight that you want back as soon as possible.
Every day, every day. Yeah, it's hard taking other fights because I want that fight. But at the same time, I had so many people texting me and messaging me like the day after the fight, like when's the rematch? When's the rematch? And simply put, if I had beaten him in the manner he beat me, there would be no rematch. I would say bye, have fun in Canada. You know what I mean? So even though I did have title defenses, even though I was on a 5-fight run, losing that way, there's no argument for an immediate rematch. Now granted, by the time I fight Lally in January, it'll have been 4 months with if he's not signed back to the UFC, like 4 months with no activity. Now it's turning into okay, well I've been active up a weight class because nobody at 55 will fight me, and since nobody at 55 will fight me, I know nobody at 55 will fight him. So it's really the only thing left, and then if he beats me again, it's like, I guess you're just better than me. If I beat
Mhm.
him, it's like, not to say that it was an off night, but I proves that I'm the fighter I know I am.
Is there anyone else regionally at 155 that really, gets your juices flowing for a fight?
Not really, because nobody will fight me. The only guy that said he was willing to fight me was Nate Williams, and he pulled out against me once, and he's won one out of his last 4 or 5. So, like I was saying before, that doesn't, if I beat him, it doesn't exactly go, oh, he has to fight Dufort again. It's like the guy hasn't won a lot of his recent fights, and going through camp, especially if it was through the holidays, having to cut weight for a guy that's already pulled out against me, doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't progress my career forward. It's not a great win. Um, and then nobody else will fight me. So it's like, unfortunately, it seems like Dufort is the only one left locally at 55. And I say locally, he's from Canada. Um, but yeah, I mean, if I beat Lally and then I go back to 55 and beat Dufort, I mean, I think I've cleared out New England. I mean, I don't know what else there is to do. So we'll see what happens after that.
How tough was that mentally to get through that loss to Dufort? Because Joe, you've won 6 out of your last 7 fights since you had those back-to-back losses for LFA. You're 15-5-1. You're really like the perfect candidate to get that call to the UFC. That must have been really tough, just absorbing that loss and kind of getting back after it, right?
Oh yeah, like I hate to say it, but I feel like it's important, and I've told plenty of people. I'm not shy about it. I kind of reverted back to like that, like freshman year of high school me, where it was like, "Woe is me, the world's against me, why me?" Everything was so good; it was only a matter of time till it goes bad, and that's a bad characteristic of mine that I have. Like when shit goes south, my first instinct was like, "Oh, well, it was bound to happen," or like, this is just my life. Everything works against me. So I told my coaches, I was like, "Give me a week to throw a pity party, and then I'll be back in the gym." And then that week went by, and I hadn't talked to any of them. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't even text my dad. I didn't want to see anybody. I was embarrassed. And then after that first week, still didn't have it in me. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't sleep well for 2 weeks. I was up till 3 in the morning. I was sleeping on my couch. My fiance is like, come to bed. And I was like, nope, don't want to. I was all messed up. And then after that second week, I honestly don't know what it was, but I was sitting in my house watching TV and I was like, I can't do this forever. I got to suck it up. I got to, get my bootstraps tight and get back to it. Because if I don't, it's just going to keep sucking. So
Mm.
the only way to make it better is just get back to it. And that's what I've been doing since. Um, but yeah, it's very easy to sit down and say, woe is me, the world's out to get me, I'm a victim. And it's super difficult to say, like, no, it's on me, it's my fault, it's my responsibility, and to get back to it. But that's the only way it's going to get better, whether it's in fighting or in life or in anything. And I've done it in all those aspects. I've done it in life where I've sat around saying, woe is me, why me? And I've done it in fighting, unfortunately. But like I said, you just got to keep going, and that's what I'm doing.
You beat Lally. I mean, if the UFC doesn't call, what do you think about, I mean, PFL just acquired Bellator, fighting for that promotion? Because I know at the end of the day, you want to fight on the biggest stage. You want to be, chasing a world title, fighting the best. Does that excite you, or does it have to be the UFC?
It has to be the UFC for me for now. Things may change, unless someone from the UFC approaches me and says, "Hey, we will never sign you." And even then, I might not let it go. It's just always been a dream of mine. And I hate to sound like a casual, but when I got into the sport, it was for the UFC. I followed the UFC and other promotions since, but it's always been my dream. And I say all the time, if I went somewhere else, not to say it'd be a worse experience or I'd make less money or less exposure, whatever, but when I look back on it, when I tell my future kids and grandkids and they go, "Hey, why did you fight for PFL instead of the UFC?" My only reason would be, well, I tried for the UFC, and then I lost, and then I tried again, and it was a little difficult, so I went the other path. You know what I mean? And that just to me isn't a good example, and I just don't want to be that guy that goes somewhere because it was too hard to go where I wanted to go. If I wake up tomorrow and something switches and I'm like, yeah, PFL sounds great, then I'll go to PFL. If they want me, you know what I mean? But until that happens, I want to be in the UFC. I want to make a world title run in the UFC. So I don't plan on rerouting because it's hard.
Okay. And you got a lot of good connections too, right? From your workout at AKA. Like, you must have heard something. Like, what have you heard from like the inner circles of the UFC? Are they watching you? Do you feel like it could be around the corner?
I don't know, man. As far as the timetable, I've tried to like pin it down and be like maybe after this one, maybe after this one. I kind of just do my thing now. I really don't try to go, okay, I'm gonna win two more and then they'll call for this or this. I'll just take every opportunity I get. And as far as like my connections, I try not to really like lean heavy on them because it's one of those things where it's like, Habib is a coach and a teammate, and Daniel Cormier is a coach and a friend, and so is Cain Velasquez and Javier Mendez, and I just don't like being that guy that's always asking for favors. Granted, I have called DC when fights fell through. When Ian Gary's opponent fell through for Boston, I was down the Cape at the beach, and I was like, "It's 45 minutes from my house. Like, I can make 170 next week and be there. I'll drive myself. I don't need a bus. I don't need a hotel. I'll beat him up and go home." He made the call, and they already had Neil Magny in for that. But even before I started sleeping at DC's Wrestling Academy, I obviously had my bus that I converted and my van. I was driving out and sleeping in the parking lot. And one day he was like, "Why didn't you just ask to stay at the gym?" And I was like, "I already feel like I only hit you up for favors, and I don't like being that guy." Now, granted, DC is a Southern boy. He loves to help, super nice guy, so he doesn't care. But just me personally, I don't like being like, "Hey, help me out," especially when I don't really have anything to offer a lot of these people. You know what I mean? Like everybody at AKA has helped me out so much, and all I really have in return to offer is my body as a training partner. DC's helped me out. So I try to help out where I can, but I don't like to lean too heavy on favors.
I understand that, and that's a respectable thing to say as well, because you want to get there on your own merit and your own talent and skill, right? And what you do inside the cage. You don't want people to be pulling strings for you to get that opportunity.
100%, and if it's one of those things where DC ever shot me a text and was like, "Hey, I put in the word, we'll see what happens," I'd be like, "Oh, awesome, thank you." And like I said, I have called him before when other fights have fallen through, like, "Hey, you think you could put in the word?" And it never happened. But it's like I said, it's just one of those things. As a friend, I hate to be that guy that's like, "Hey, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me?" It doesn't seem like a friendship. It seems like you're almost using somebody.
Yeah, no, totally get that, man. Let me ask you your opinion on Habib, or Islam? That's a tough question, right? I mean, both of those guys are two of the best ever. But if they were gonna get into an MMA fight, like where would you lean? Is there someone that you feel like is better than the other?
I have absolutely no idea. I really don't. The guys at AK always joke around like, Habib or Islam is like Habib, but like he's younger, so he's still getting better. So it's just like the next generation. But I don't know. They both have beaten me up. Habib's beaten me up way more times. I've trained with him many more times. But they both beat me up just the same. The thing I will say is Islam attacks a lot more submissions, whereas Habib is very much smash.
Mhm. Yeah. I wanted to see that Habib GSP fight so bad. And I know like George was a little bit older. It probably that may have changed things, but man, that was one of those like all-time fights. I feel like we kind of got robbed that we didn't get to see it.
I know. We never got GSP Anderson Silva. We never got GSP Habib. I know.
Yeah.
We've missed out on some super fights.
Let's talk this upcoming fight, shall we? Cage Titan 63, January the 27th. It'll be here before you know it. Again, man, Sean Lally, if you follow the MMA scene here regionally, or if you just follow MMA in general, you probably know who he is. He's got a lot of experience, aggressive fighter, like I said. Is this the toughest fight of your career, or do you feel like you fought some more dangerous guys?
Um, it's weird because I don't know if he's the most dangerous or the toughest, but he's definitely one of the most dangerous because, no offense to him, he's very one-dimensional. He's an aggressive power puncher. I think I'm a better wrestler, a better grappler. I think my technique is better in the feet. But he very clearly hits harder than I do and most people locally. So similar but opposite of Dufour. It's one of those things where if you let him fight his fight, then you've got problems. Dufour got me down and got me into his go-to position. He fought his fight and he's beat me. Lally, if I'm not using my footwork well and I'm not being the matador, I'm gonna get run down by a bull. So it's very similar as far as being dangerous. But like I said, he's a contender series vet. He's a bigger guy. I'm putting myself at so many disadvantages so that way when I do win, people will pick and choose. Well, he's only won one out of his last couple too. Well, he's coming off of that win. He's coming down from 185. He's a big dude. He's stronger. He's more powerful. He's aggressive. I beat that guy. It's another disadvantage I was at and still got the win.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you feel like there's gonna be a big strength disadvantage in this fight against Sally, or do you feel like you being heavier, walking around a little bit heavier, that might be a little bit closer?
Off the rip, I'd say he's probably going to be way stronger than me. I'm used to being the nail, not the hammer, so it really doesn't bother me. But at the same time, like I've been pretty heavy lately, and I've been competing. Like I've been doing I did a jujitsu tournament at 194, and everybody in that tournament was like, "Dude, you're the strongest guy I've ever grappled." And I was like, "I've literally never heard that in my life." So we'll see. I could surprise myself on fight night.
Do you think this fight is gonna take place a lot on the mat, or do you think the fans could be in for a treat on the feet?
I think the fans are in for a treat on the feet. Like I said, Bull and Matador for sure. I think technique is going to be the big factor here.
Ultimate prediction. How do you get it done?
Second round knockout.
You think you knock him out or TKO?
Knock him out. I mean, he's a tough guy. I don't think a TKO is in the cards. I don't think he's going to lay against the fence while I land strikes. I think I'll have to put him away to get a KO.
And if you do put him away, Joe, I mean, we've already talked about this a little bit, but like you put Sean Lally out here in this fight. I mean, that has to show that you're ready for that next level, right? I mean, what else would you need to prove here?
I'm not sure. I think the biggest thing for me is I'm not really trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. I'm trying to prove it to myself and I'm trying to keep improving. And one of the things that I heard from Sean Shelby was fight contender series level guys, make weight and have good fights. And I think that this fight checks all the boxes. Contender series vet, obviously going to make weight going up a weight class. And I plan on putting on a good performance. So if I check all those boxes, I'm hitting the criteria. And either UFC, there's plenty of local East Coast fight cards coming up in early 2024. I'm down for Atlantic City. I'm down for Miami. I'm down for any of them. If not, we try and get Dufour back here and get my belt back, and then go from there. But yeah, definitely a lot of good possibilities after this fight.
Can't wait to see you back in there, man. Again, January the 27th, Cage Titan 63, Joe Giannetti, Sean Lally. As always, man, I appreciate your time. Great talking to you. It's been far too long. Have to do it again soon. Before we do sign off, as always, I want to give you the floor. Anyone you want to thank, anything you want to plug, floor is yours.
Just same as usual. Everybody who buys tickets, t-shirts, not just from me, but from your favorite fighters, it helps us out so much. I'll preach it till the day I die. Support your local fighters, whether it's me or anybody else. Everybody at AKA that helps me out, everybody at BTT Taunton. I've been getting working with the New England Cartel recently. Everybody up there, you guys are the best. Like I said before, I don't really have much to offer in this life, but I can light up a room and I can give you some work in MMA. That's about it. So I'll do that as much as I can. Everybody else, if you are coming to see me January 27th, please hit me up. Like I said, it helps a ton. I appreciate you.